Today we're going to take a look at the Anguished Guardian of the Ruins from Lies of P's Overture DLC. What's good about this boss, what's bad, and I'll score its difficulty and how much I liked it overall. Firstly, it wouldn't be a Souls-like game if you didn't have to fight a monster the size of a building at some point, so here we are. These fights always make for interesting spectacles because of the sheer scale of the thing you're fighting, and this is no exception. One thing that players often try to do with gigantic bosses is to stay underneath them to avoid the majority of their attacks. Don't lie, at some point in your Souls career you've sat under a dragon hacking away at its legs. There's no shame in that. As an experiment, I tried to see if that strategy is viable here, and I didn't really think it was. He tracks you very well, and his chest sits too low to the ground, blocking your hitbox. And he has a couple disengage moves to prevent this. I think that's totally fine, by the way. I was just curious what would happen if I tried to sit underneath him. Another factor discouraging you from trying to hide underneath him is that he has two weak points, one on his head and one on his left hand, which make audible crunchy sounds when you hit them. Destroying the one on his hand stuns him for a time, giving you a window to attack carefree, or execute some fancy Fable attacks that normally have too big a windup to be practical. Destroying the one on his head is even better as it gives you an instant stagger. Gives you a little bit of time to do damage, and then the opportunity to execute this fantastic cinematic critical attack. I like this weak point mechanic in that not only does it send a clear signal to the player that they should be attacking the head and hand, but it also opens up the opportunity for some strategy. For example, when doing this boss on difficulty 3, I chose to wait until phase 2 to break the hand crystal, so that I could have my Fable charged up, and also shorten the time that I had to survive his more dangerous phase 2 attacks. Which worked, eventually. Otherwise, for the most part, this is a pretty standard fight for a colossal-sized boss. You can still turn away the blow of a truck landing on you by holding up your sword. I did find that even though this is supposed to be a big showpiece boss with a cutscene and all, it was much easier than the two before it, Markiona and the Two-Faced Overseer, and Veronique for that matter, which they inexplicably call a mini-boss. As a result, I didn't really care too much about the flaws in his moveset until I ramped it up to difficulty 3 in the boss rematch mode. But once I did, some of the issues became pretty apparent. Firstly, it can sometimes be difficult to read when the boss is done attacking, and it's your turn to attack or heal. I started calling this sequence the 3 to 5, where it's normally 3 hits, after which you have a nice offensive opportunity. But sometimes the boss extends it to 5 hits. Okay, time to attack, right? Wrong. Both weapons are coming across from the left side. This is sometimes called a mix-up, where you're expecting a gap but there isn't one. I think they can be okay if used sparingly, but if you're playing this straight, it basically means you have to hesitate to see if the extension is coming, wasting valuable time. Or you can just go for it and expect to get punished sometimes. Not the end of the world, but it does irritate me a little bit. What bothers me more is this overhead attack with the big spear. The game encourages you to stay close to the head and hand weak points, and when you're there, the big spear arm overhead is off camera, and it can seemingly randomly just crash down on your head. I think this would be fine if the solution were better positioning so that you could see it, but I don't really think that's the fix here, since you have to be up close to do damage. Again, not a deal breaker, but it felt off to me. Somewhere around 60% HP, you'll enter phase 2, marked by a cutscene. This follows the normal phase 2 formula where the boss retains many of its phase 1 attacks, some of which have been tweaked, and he also gains some brand new, more dangerous attacks. He always opens phase 2 with the lasers. These are really easy to avoid the first time by just running towards him right after the break, but you'll have to contend with them for real afterwards. Take a look at this. See if you can guess what bothered me here. Okay, let's break that down. I'll start in the middle with these side-to-side sweeps. I think these are totally fine. You can see them coming, and dodging through them is pretty intuitive. We've seen this before. In recent memory are a couple from Elden Ring's DLC, Shadows of the Erdtree. We've got one from Metyr, the Finger Mother lady, and another one from Bale, everybody's best friend. So that's all well and good, but what I really hate is the upward laser that starts in the ground and zips upwards while tracking you the whole way, forcing a dodge with very little warning. You're seeing this at 50% speed, and the laser accelerates along the ground at you at incredible speed, doesn't it? Geometry is the enemy here, meaning that even if the boss is moving the angle of the laser upwards at a constant speed, the speed that the laser approaches you along the ground increases exponentially. So it's very tough to calculate when it's going to hit you with what little time you have. Anyway, all that is to say I don't like it, but it is easier to dodge if you're up close. Hey, speaking of Elden Ring, they did remind me of the crazy random lasers from Placidus X. If there are any no-hit runners out there, I'd be really interested to hear what your strategy is for dodging this. If the answer is just be behind him, then I'll be deeply sad. Okay, back on the Anguished Guardian. Of course we have to address this big explosion. I remarked in my Marchiona video that I'm not a big fan of huge explosions, and this one is worse than that one. I didn't really have success running out of it, nor dodging it, since the telegraph of when the explosion is coming isn't very intuitive for me. Hold up, did you just see that? Was that dodge early or late? I can't even tell. Only after reviewing this footage did I notice one indicator you can use. He takes his hand off the spear and then re-grabs it. And then there's a delay you have to memorize before you should actually roll. All that is to say, I'm not a fan of this one. Setting my criticisms aside for a moment, I did actually enjoy this boss at its intended difficulty. It was only when trying difficulty 3 in the boss rematch mode where I ran into most of these issues. Attacks that are unfair or annoying to mitigate don't really matter as much if they don't do too much damage, and the Anguished Guardian is not putting out as much damage as most of the bosses you've seen so far. For that reason, I rate the difficulty of this boss as not too bad. It's a strange step down from the other bosses we've seen so far, but I don't mind that. It can be nice to have a little break here and there. As far as my overall enjoyment of the Anguished Guardian, I give it a 6 out of 10. It's a pretty fun spectacle boss with some satisfying attack patterns to evade and some that feel unfair or annoying. That's all for now, thanks for watching. Now, please enjoy this footage of rocks falling.
You